Welcome to my fourth and final mock draft of the 2021 NFL draft season. Somehow it's been a long draft season that's flown by, and I wasted way too much of the final stretch of draft season making this top 10 unicorns video, and now I've got to go rapid speed for some of the picks in my fourth and final mock here. I've also got a few trades in this one because I'm going to get one of them right this year. When you're done here though, seriously, go watch my unicorns video and leave a like and subscribe so I can squeeze out as many views from that one before the actual draft, but I think you'll like it. And at the end of this mock, I do have a second round presented without commentary on it because I'm going to rant a little bit about the draft coverage this season. So if you don't want to hear me complaining, but you want to see the second round, feel free to mute me. It's not going to hurt my feelings, I promise. But yeah, let's roll through these first few picks. So at number 1 and 2, no news here. Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars, Zach Wilson to the Jets. It's almost like this was too much consistency throughout the draft process that we're trying to manufacture some excitement here at number 3, because I guess this is my last chance to get on a pedestal and preach about how dumb the McCorkle Jones rumors are. But for the sake of this mock, let's just keep it rolling, agree to disagree until we hear the name called on Thursday, and I'll save my frustrations for my rant at the end. At number 4 with the Falcons, these Julio Jones rumors are coming out because people are seeing the writing on the wall for the Falcons to take Kyle Pitts, and other teams are assuming or hoping that they think that they don't need all these receiving threats. Personally, I don't want to see Julio in any other uniform, but that's not up to me. I'd keep Julio, Ridley, Hayden Hurst, Olamide Zaccheaus, go who's go, and still draft Kyle Pitts. Your move, Matty Ice. At number 5, we have the Bengals, and the Ja'Marr Chase versus Penei Sewell debate has been one of the more interesting draft debates of recent years. It really opened up a discourse on what helps a quarterback more, weapons or protection. If their cupboard was completely bare and lacking weapons, I'd say the Bengals need Ja'Marr Chase, but they've spent resources on wide receivers, and adding Chase would only lessen the value of a Tyler Boyd and a T. Higgins. Adding Sewell to play left tackle moves Jonah Williams to another position, creating more wealth along the offensive line, which then also helps you in the running game, gets more production from Joe Mixon. Ultimately, I think it's more of a domino effect than a wide receiver. Either way, I think that this is a win-win situation for the Bengals, whichever way they go, but I'm still leaning towards the positional value in the trenches. At least with the Bengals, it's pretty obvious that it's going to go either one of two ways because, you know, they're not trading. So to me, the first 5 picks are pretty straightforward. At number 6 with the Dolphins is where things could really start to get interesting because their placement here at number 6 was a unique journey in its own sense, and I truly believe that they may have positioned themselves where they could ultimately decide where the 4th or maybe even the 5th quarterback at this point is going to be taken. The translation here is they can block the Patriots from getting Trey Lance. The fallback plan here would be getting one of these top wide receivers. It's damn near impossible to predict who can jump this high other than the Broncos, and I'll get into them in a minute. I considered the Bears trying to trade up, but I find it unlikely that a lame duck GM would be able to pull off a move like that. I've mocked the Vikings here before, and I think they're still a dark horse to trade up, and Washington could make the move, but I think that they'll sit tight instead of blowing their wad for Trey Lance. So ultimately, I think the Dolphins are stuck taking Ja'Marr Chase here. It's not a bad position to be stuck in, but that does leave the inevitable. I don't think I've ever mocked a trade twice in a single draft season, but I'm about to do it here with the Lions at number 7, and that's just how much I think that this is going to be the trade that does happen. Actually, if you include the 7-round mock draft that I posted on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, this is me tripling down on the Patriots trading up for Trey Lance. Since I've covered this twice, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on, but feel free to go check out those videos for why I'm so sold on this trade happening. Now the Panthers are left at number 8 with McCorkle Jones to try and sell him to another team. Spoiler alert, nobody else is buying it either. That leaves the Panthers picking at 8. Rashawn Slater seems to be the consensus pick here for them, and I agree. I made this the pick in my last mock. This was actually about 24 hours before they traded for Sam Darnold, and I'm in the boat that still like Darnold's potential, and you couldn't go wrong with Slater here because you saw Darnold behind a bad offensive line in New York, and that didn't work out so well. But Slater would likely be a guard for the Panthers, and the 8th overall pick seems rich for an interior offensive lineman. So I'm throwing this mock a curveball because I think that someone is going to snag the guy that has been mocked to the same spot in more mock drafts than anyone in 2021, maybe in the history of mock drafts, Patrick Surtain II. I know that the Panthers went all in on their defense last year, dedicating I think it was 8 overall picks to the defense in the last draft, but this would be the cherry on the top. Former LSU offensive coordinator Joe Brady probably only has glowing things to say about the guy, and Surtain is the alpha cornerback that this defense has been lacking since Josh Norman had a good season or two there. At number 9, we've got the Broncos, and put it bluntly, I think that the new GM targeting a quarterback is overblown. George Paton is in a unique situation where the GM from the previous regime is actually his boss, and the quarterback that he selected 2 seasons ago is still on the roster. So unless John Elway has directly instructed him to move on from Drew Lock this offseason, Paton has an opportunity to stall and buy some time before tethering himself to a quarterback. Fair or not, a GM's legacy is essentially tied to the quarterback they select. Unless your name's John Dorsey, that guy gets no credit for being the GM in title. for taking Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. But anyways, if George Paton is interested in job security, you don't take the 5th quarterback off the board with the 9th pick and tie your career to them. I really think the Broncos will try and find the heir apparent to Von Miller in this draft. He's got a year left on his deal, but he can be traded after June 1st and will save the Broncos an immediate $18 million on the cap. I don't know if that cap space helps him this year, and Von could play out his contract, sign with a new team in 2022, and the Broncos are looking at a 3rd round compensatory pick. Either way, I think his time is coming to an end with the Broncos, and assuming John Elway has some influence on this pick, the Broncos did draft Bradley Chubb when they still had former 1st rounders Shane Ray on the roster and Shaquille Barrett on the roster. When I was diving deep on George Paton, I noticed that he went to UCLA, and he was the Vikings assistant GM when they drafted Anthony Barr at number 9 overall. Well, I'd already been toying with the idea of making Jalen Phillips a surprise pick here. Even with the disappointing ending at UCLA, that college connection means that Paton has been woke to Phillips for a long time now, so I think that Jalen Phillips is definitely on the table here at number 9. And in case you were wondering, yes, I do enjoy falling deep down these rabbit holes like this when researching for my mock drafts. It's part of the reason that they take so long to make. But I kept it conservative and didn't change from the last mock, so Micah Parsons is still the pick here for me, and I think that this is a top 5 successful marriage of a team and player in the 1st round. But if the Broncos do end up taking Jalen Phillips at some point, please come back and leave the classic comment of who's here after the Broncos took Jalen Phillips. At number 10, it's the Cowboys, and Patrick Surtain is not available for them. Wild, right? Ever since Caleb Farley's back was brought into the light, the only other player I've seen mocked to the Cowboys is Rashawn Slater. I'm not buying the Cowboys spending a top 10 pick on an interior offensive lineman, even if he's got potential to be your left tackle in a few seasons if Tyron Smith's career comes to a close. I'd be down for JC Horn here, and wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the 1st cornerback off the board anyways, but I think the Cowboys still really like Caleb Farley, and would be easily tempted by a slight trade down with those 2 cornerbacks still on the board. The Chargers could be sold on the Cowboys taking Slater here, and then looking at the 2 offensive line needy teams separating them from this pick, and pull the trigger on a trade that would get their franchise quarterback a legit offensive lineman in Rashawn Slater. From the Cowboys perspective, they would look at the Giants and Eagles and have to feel comfortable that they both wouldn't take a cornerback, and then could land an extra pick in the move, providing them with enough ammo to trade up for their guys essentially at any point for the rest of the draft. The compensation that I had to use in the Draft Network simulator was kind of steep, but I kind of think that this trade could be accepted for less. What do you guys think? With the Giants at number 11, I actually don't think that they're going to take a cornerback or an offensive lineman here. There's been so much talk about Gettleman and never trading down that it's going to be interesting to see if it manifests itself into him actually getting fleeced, just so he doesn't have to hear about this next draft season, assuming he's still there, of course. It's hilarious though, because analytics do say that trading down always provides a higher chance of success, but Gettleman is about as old school as it comes and probably doesn't trust those math nerds at PFF. I take the analytics with a grain of salt because I think they do have a place and they're essentially just another voice in the room, but I'm sure there's a generation down the line after me that won't even see the point in playing the games and will just run the whole game through an analytics simulator. Probably that's some dystopian future I'm not around for. This is going to be a hard pick for the old school Gettleman because I think he's got to take an Alabama wide receiver here, and I'm sure that goes against everything he believes in. I actually saw somebody joke about him taking Christian Barmore here just to stay on old school brand, and honestly it really wouldn't shock me from Gettleman. Anyways, I'm rambling when I was supposed to be keeping some of these picks short. I flipped and flopped with these Bama wide receivers, and I'm back to Gettleman going with the Heisman winner as a deciding factor. That leaves Jalen Waddle for the Eagles here at number 12, and now they have 2 burners to replace Deshaun Jackson. Waddle was one of the unicorns I listed in my previous video that I'm reminding you once again to check out after this one, and in it I mentioned that without a concrete 4.340 next to his name on the draft board, he's not going to get the same treatment as a Henry Ruggs or a John Ross. But ultimately I think he could be a steal at number 12 one day, which is ironically the same slot that Ruggs was drafted at last year. At number 13, we've got the Cowboys back on the clock. And before free agency, remember the Broncos and the Cowboys at 9 and 10? That was cornerback central in all the mocks. Now I think that it's shifted to 11 and 12 being wide receivers almost exclusively. The Cowboys can use that to their advantage to accept a trade down in this scenario, and they still land JC Horn. As a Cowboys fan, I love the rumor of the Patriots trading Stephon Gilmore and their first for number 10. I'd feel a lot better about taking an offensive lineman early in the draft if that was the case. But McCorkle Jones is not getting the needle moving like people are projecting. But if the Cowboys can trade down somehow, I fully expect them back in the late 20s, early 30s to try and double dip in this first round talent. At number 14, we've got the Vikings, and if they don't make an effort to trade up for Trey Lance, I think that it's because GM Rick Spielman is feeling the heat to win now in what is likely Kirk Cousins' final season in Minnesota. With that mindset, the Vikings have to try and maximize this offense's potential. Shout out to the live stream crew for helping me through this one. Brian O'Neill is a solid right tackle, and you spent a second rounder on Ezra Cleveland to eventually be your left tackle. Now would be the time to move him because he's been terrible at right guard. Virginia Tech's offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw is widely regarded as the next offensive lineman on the board, but you'd be asking him to do the same thing you asked Ezra Cleveland to do. And some guys, they can be interchangeable at guard and tackle, but I think that Madden has actually overblown this concept, and both Cleveland and Darrisaw are just built like prototypical tackles, and the performance that you've seen out of Cleveland for the past 2 seasons is more of a realistic expectation of what that move would be like when you move guys that are not built for the guard position. Luckily though for the Vikings, Mac Jones is still on the board, and some team is likely getting antsy to make a move up for him. One of the candidates to trade up for McCorkle at this point would be the division rival Bears, so theoretically the Vikings could block them from finding some semblance of hope at the quarterback position by trading down and letting another team trade up for him here. Washington football team signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is essentially the move a quarter of the league has made right before they drafted a new quarterback. The Washington Crimson Tide is the ideal landing space for McCorkle in the first round, and allowing him to fall where he should is great value because it would cost them maybe a 3rd round to get up here. At number 15, the Lions are on the clock after their trade down with the Patriots, and in this previous scenario, I had them taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah here to man the middle of their hybrid defense. But it's really hard to get a read on this team other than they seem like prime candidates to trade down from number 7, and that Dan Campbell might already be the most throwback head coach in the league.
We're going to kick you in the teeth, and when you knock us down, we're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right, before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
I really wanted to get the Ravens to trade up at some point for Tevin Jenkins after their trade of Orlando Brown Jr. to the Chiefs, because that seems like another team and player marriage that would be made in heaven. But Jenkins is about as kick you in the teeth and bite off a kneecap as they come, and could be an even better fit in Detroit if they find a way to trade down. Tevin Jenkins is a tone setter and would help Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker establish one of the most imposing offensive lines in the league. Shout out to Brett Coleman for his breakdown on Tevin Jenkins. At number 16, this pick feels almost too obvious to be the true outcome, but I just don't see how the Cardinals can let Caleb Farley fall any farther. With how big of a need that cornerback has been for them for quite a while now, they're not in position to get picky and let a talent like Farley go. The concerns over his back are not that of a long-term issue. You just hope that he plays enough in the first 4 to 5 years to where you see value in him signing a second contract. He should be fine for this season though, especially with all the rehab that he's done that's been focused on that back, and he's still got youth on his side. The Cardinals have made it pretty clear that they're hopping all in on this season with the moves they made in free agency, and having a talent like Caleb Farley would lessen the blow of losing a Patrick Peterson. At number 17, we've got the Raiders, and they might actually be the floor for Tevin Jenkins, to be honest. Their need at right tackle is pretty glaring after the early offseason trade of Trent Brown, but Christian Darrisaw still puts off Raider-like vibes with his style of play, but I just hate to see the guy move to right tackle because I think he's a bona fide left tackle. The Raiders are weird AF anyways, so who knows which direction they take this 17th overall pick. At number 18, the Dolphins have positioned themselves to take the best player available here. However, I'm thinking it's going to be a defender of some kind. I'm torn between linebackers here because I don't want to end Jerome Baker's time as a Dolphin after one of his best seasons as a pro, so I'm passing on JOK and Jamin Davis here to take Zaven Collins. This is a dream scenario for Collins because he could be special in the right scheme, and this is that scheme. Brian Flores would turn him into a monster. I'm thinking Adalius Thomas-like. At 19, this has fallen really well for the Vikings after their trade down with Washington. It would have felt like a slight reach at 14, but USC's Elijah Vera Tucker is the ideal offensive lineman for them because of the versatility he brings. The Vikings can bring everybody to camp and then just let their best 5 guys start. That way, Ezra Cleveland can get his shot at left tackle. If the past 2 seasons are any indication and he's actually just not that good at football, then you can try him at guard again. And hopefully, Vera Tucker can continue to thrive at left tackle as he did as a senior at USC. Preferably though, Ezra excels at left tackle with a sturdy left guard like Vera Tucker next to him, while he also helps Garrett Bradbury become more of an effective player at center because he's been kind of a bust thus far. I have a feeling that the Bears are going to end up SOL in this draft, especially if they stay at pick 20 like this. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't know how much pull Ryan Pace is going to have as far as mortgaging the future for right now. I'm assuming the teams have learned from Bill O'Brien running out of Houston and leaving the place on fire. Obviously Pace isn't the coach, but does anybody really think that he and Matt Nagy are going to save their jobs this season? The least that these guys could do is get a replacement for Allen Robinson, because he's also out of town after this season too. I wouldn't even be mad at him if he took his whole season off AJ Green style and loafed for the Bears holding him hostage with a franchise tag like this. At 21, we have got the Colts, and for them, it's down to 3 options: edge rusher, offensive tackle, or trade down. The offensive tackle depth has been kind of murked thus far, and there's still a lot of good options at edge rusher, but Chris Ballard loves a good trade down, and there's a team here that will literally be putting their last few chips in this week for a 2021 run. The Super Bowl champ Buccaneers are going to trade up at some point, and I've got the Colts leveraging their need at edge rusher for an extra 3rd at least. I think I had the Bucs taking Phillips at 32 in my last mock. There's been so many many real and rough draft mocks that I can't even keep up. And I think that's because there's 1,000 simulators now and I want to try all of them. Back in my day, we only had one simulator and that was FanSpeak. Those poor guys, they waited too long to barely update their UI and now I don't think anybody uses it anymore. Anyways, I love the pairing with Phillips and the Buccaneers because much like with Caleb Farley, you don't know the longevity with these guys, but you know you're getting a top 10 talent for 2021. At 22, the Titans are on the clock, and even though they added Bud Dupree in free agency, he is coming off of a serious injury, and not many free agent pass rushers end up contributing like a Brian Orakpo or the way that Shaq Barrett did for the Bucs last year. And really, he only had one elite season rushing the passer, and that was partially due to the attention that TJ Watt was demanding on the other side. I've mocked Azeez Ojulari here before, but for some reason, Joe Tryon is getting a lot of first round buzz, and I could see him being the surprise pick here. The common denominator, though, is more pass rush for the Titans. The Jets are going to end up with multiple directions that they could go here at number 23, and I've toyed with edge, cornerback, and running back. I'm landing on cornerback here in the 4th mock draft because Greg Newsome is a good scheme fit, but he's raw. At the same time, new head coach Robert Salah is here for the long run and should have time to develop him alongside Bryce Hall, giving the Jets 2 legit cornerbacks. Everybody wants Najee Harris here for the Steelers at 24, and it does seem like a very Steelers kind of pick, but I'm not a fan of first round running backs, and definitely not a fan when the offensive line is in this rough of shape. It'd be like buying a jet ski when you live in the desert. Sam Cosmi was easy to fall back on in these too many times, but another Steelers kind of pick here would be Alabama center Landon Dickerson. Pouncey retired, Villanueva's reportedly headed to the rival Ravens, and it's time to rebuild from the ground up. With the Jaguars at 25, and the way they are building this defense, Trevon Moehrig just continues to make too much sense here, especially with the Rayshawn Jenkins signing. I thought about branching out for one of these linebackers, but I could see Jenkins coming into the box to play a hybrid linebacker role with a guy like Moehrig to play center field. At 26, the Browns are on the clock, and getting Jadeveon Clowney to sign was a big move for the Browns, especially when he signed this early in the offseason because now you can get him acclimated, get him in physical shape over the summer. But the Browns would be willfully ignorant to cross edge rush off the list of needs. It doesn't have to be in the first round now, but it should still be addressed early on. Let's reinforce the defensive line with the top defensive tackle in a weak class because they've got no real future presence on the roster, and Barmore could be an early contributor to an underrated defense. At 27, we've got the Ravens, and they must have been desperate to get a first round pick, but with reports of Alejandro Villanueva set to join them once he no longer counted against their comp picks, I guess they felt pretty comfortable with their compensation, even if it meant helping an AFC rival. Now they have 2 late first round picks to do what the Ravens do best, pick value over needs. It just so happens, though, that an edge rusher is both good value here and a high need for them. Kwity Paye is probably the best edge available, but I'm not sure he fits the Ravens scheme. They need an outlier on this defense, a unicorn, so to speak. Go watch my last video, top 10 unicorns. Okay, thanks again, bye. Jason Owe is not ready for a full-time role in the NFL, but he's got one of the highest ceilings of all the edge rushers and could be deployed in pass rush situations as a rookie across from Tyus Bowser, while Pernell McPhee and Jalen Ferguson handle the dirty work on first and second downs. The Saints are a tough team to project here at 28. Based on the roster and the board in this scenario, they've got to go with one of the linebackers. I'm leaning towards JOK because of his ability to cover like a safety and their struggles against the pass, but Jamin Davis would also help plug this revolving door they've had at inside linebacker for quite a while. At 29, we've got the Packers, and they have made it very clear that they don't care about our sensible mock drafts. They're going to take who they want. I've seen Elijah Moore here a lot lately, but I'm just not seeing it for them. As dynamic as he can be, and honestly probably a perfect fit as a slot wide receiver in this offense, I just don't think that the Packers look that low to the ground for wide receivers. Much like with the Saints, the Packers have struggled to find an inside linebacker for quite a while, but Jamin Davis could be the athletic answer to their problems. At 30, we've got the Bills, and their roster is pretty much set, so this draft class will be to reinforce areas where they might lack depth or projecting a future starter. I've heard there's Najee Harris interest here too, and I actually would love to see them have the balls to use a first rounder on a running back after spending 2 third rounders in consecutive seasons on running backs Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I like both those guys, but when you're just a guy, you're just a guy. If the Bills feel like Najee Harris is the man, then take him. Personally, I don't have the balls to make that pick here. I'm just the hype man in the back cheering it on. Now I'm going to stop Kwity Paye's fall in this mock because he's too talented to fall out of the first, and the Bills have to prepare for life after Jerry Hughes eventually. Hughes is 32 and entering the final year of his contract. I've mocked Kwity Paye as high as number 7 to the Lions, and now this is probably the lowest that I've mocked him to go. He's definitely one of the wild cards in this draft class, so he's one that could surprise us when his name is called on Thursday. At 31, we've got the Ravens now in charge of this pick after the Chiefs traded it to them in a move that was very similar to the Frank Clark deal when you knew the Chiefs were sort of pigeonholed to select a specific position, but knew they were going to have to settle for the first round scraps at the end of the round. Instead, they were able to turn a late first rounder into a Pro Bowl player, which is a really solid move by them. For the Ravens, if the Villanueva signing falls through for some reason, the Ravens are going to wish that they drafted Sam Cosmi or Alex Leatherwood here, but I'm putting faith in this front office to have contingency plans in place. That frees them up to get weird with this this pick, like to link up with the Dolphins and try to recreate the future investment that the Dolphins are still capitalizing on with the trading of an offensive tackle. This allows the Dolphins to secure their guy at running back in Najee Harris before the Jets, or allowing some team to sleep on it and then spend all day Friday negotiating a way to take him before 36, and he'll come with a 5th-year option, which in my opinion is the main attraction for taking a running back in the first round. And then at 32, after their trade down with the Buccaneers, the Colts are on the clock, and wherever they end up picking, they could end up being the floor for Kwity Paye. I mean, with them moving down to 32, he still almost fell into their lap. But with him off the board, Chris Ballard is not going to reach for the next edge, and instead, I think that they could shift their focus to the offensive line, most notably Alex Leatherwood. I think that his athletic profile tested well enough to play left tackle, especially indoors and alongside Quentin Nelson. Sam Cosmi is an option here also because both tested well athletically, and that is an important factor for Ballard and his offensive linemen. And that's going to do it for the first round. Remember, I'm going to be showing my second round here, but without commentary on the picks. I feel like I've kind of covered the needs of a lot of these teams. I want to use these last couple of minutes to thank you guys for following, subscribing, watching these videos throughout the draft season. While I haven't been able to make as much content of my own, I've still been able to consume a good amount, and I've come to a strange conclusion that this has just been a weird 2-year span of draft coverage. And not to be a get off my lawn type, I'm not a fan of the direction that mock drafts are headed. And it's not just the coverage of Justin Fields and Mac Jones, although that did seem to put me over the edge a few times, but it's becoming glaringly obvious that we're giving a platform to those that just don't seem worthy to me. I've always felt like the draft was safe from the thirst for internet clicks because you used to have to be a special kind of football nerd to really like it. Now every intern and every media platform has a mock draft where they just throw regurgitated responses out in a mock. It looks like it was on auto pick in PFF's draft simulator. And yeah, maybe I'm a little salty because I didn't have as much time to create as many mock drafts as I had wanted to, but I just want to encourage you guys to use your engagement on videos and articles and social media posts like it's a vote, and stop giving these trash opinions and organizations any more of your attention. But yeah, with the Mac Jones thing, if I'm wrong on it, then I'll own it 100%, I promise you. But to me, it just feels like somebody somewhere doesn't respect our intelligence as fans and is talking down to us. Like I said, if Mac Jones somehow ends up being the number 3 overall pick, I will apologize wholeheartedly and actually probably thank them for prepping me for the worst case scenario, or the most disappointing scenario. Like, imagine if someone told you that Game of Thrones had a shitty season 8 ending while you were watching in real time, like they were from the future. You wouldn't have believed them, right? Because the show was so good, there's no way that it would end poorly, right? But then when you got to the end and saw that it was a shitty ending, you would have probably been less disappointed because part of you would have been expecting that. Maybe all of us Justin Fields truthers will feel better about McCorkle if he is actually the pick. But yeah, rant over. I appreciate you guys listening. If you guys think that I'm doing more than just checking a box here with these mock drafts, please make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff all over this video. And not just my videos, but other people that have been showing a skill or knowledge about this stuff, and it's clear that they're not just checking a box and fulfilling their work requirements. Good luck to everybody's team on Thursday night, and I guess Friday for those of you that don't have a first round pick. I probably won't be trying to compete with all of the other live streams going on in the first round. My wife is actually headed away on Thursday and not coming back until Sunday because she will be on a bachelorette party trip, so that was good timing. And I'll be with all 3 kids all weekend long while trying to keep up with the draft. Luckily, the draft is at bedtime, and on Saturday I've got the grandparents helping me out a little bit. So what I might do is Thursday night, once the draft starts to slow down at the end, all the guys that have been doing live streams for 3-4 hours are running out of steam. I might hop on and we can run some second round mock drafts based on the way that the first round played out. But yeah, that's a wrap for me on the 2021 NFL draft season. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.